Welcome back to the online edition of the People's Film Festival 2022. Now, this is a hybrid event with both physical screenings and streaming online. And if you haven't already, you can get your pass at kinoshortfilm.com. We have a full access pass, which includes all cinema screenings, or an online pass for £5, where you can watch all 40 official selections and vote for your favorite film to win. Over the past few days, we've had some amazing chats with some filmmakers and some industry professionals. We had a short film finance panel, short film distribution. Last night, I was able to chat with some festival directors and programmers from some heavy hitters like Rain Dance and BFI and Shriekfest. But right now, we are chatting with some filmmakers, which I will bring into the room. If you are interested in rewatching any of the live streams, you can do so at our website for the remainder of the festival. But right now, I'm chatting with Oliver and Simone, both from A Tree Fell Today. Hello, guys.
Hello.
Hi.
And we have Sophia from Blinkers and Hamza from JAHANNAM. Welcome, guys. How are you?
Good.
I'm good.
Good.
Thank you.
Also good.
Thank you for pronouncing.
Terrible.
Thank you for pronouncing the name of the film correctly as well, because
good.
Everyone
good.
is calling it all kinds of names and not pronouncing it correctly. So
good.
Have you got like a favorite bad name? Like, has there been a really bad pronunciation?
Well, when so this film was made for university, and my lecturer always called it JAHANNAM, even though
no L.
Like, we would correct him all the time, and he'll just get it wrong every single time. So
that's even worse. I mean, I think sometimes it's forgivable first time around on things, but it's like when it's time after time after time, it's like, come on, get with the program. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. You guys all have wonderful films in the film festival. I'd just like to kick it off by just getting to know a little bit more about you as individual filmmakers before we chat about your films. So we'll just go around in order. Oliver, do you want to tell us about yourself? I did a little bit of digging. It said in your bio that you were traveling the world with a Hollywood director of Lucky Number 11 and Wicker Man, and I think you were his assistant on Victor Frankenstein with Daniel Radcliffe and James McAvoy. So can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into being a shorts director as well?
Okay, yes, as you said, I work in the film industry as well, and I have done for about 15 years now, which again started with the whole thing of I've just sort of always loved movies and wanted to make movies. So I figured, well, how do you learn to make movies? You work in the film industry. So that was kind of how that happened, really. And as you said, I worked with Paul McGuigan for about 7 years, which was great, sort of traveling the world and working on sort of really big TV pilots and films. And that's where I sort of learned everything I kind of needed to know. I mean, we're always learning, but, you know, the basics of how to make a film. And that then, obviously, while doing that, I was constantly making stuff and doing the rest of it.
Nice. This is your fourth short, if I'm correct?
It's my fourth short. I mean, I consider my last two kind of the bigger, like I knew what I was doing. I feel my early two was very much like me just having something and knowing and trying stuff around. I think that's what we all have to do.
Absolutely.
Where I consider, Evolutionary and A Tree Fell Today are much more solid, you know, set pieces with a set narrative, and they have really something important to tell.
Yeah, I think experimenting and trial by error is very, very valuable for all the filmmakers out there, for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you've got to make a bad movie before you know how to make a good movie, right?
Yep. I mean, unless you're some prodigy, I guess.
Yeah.
Which maybe they have made a bad movie, they just never told you about it. Simone, do you want to tell me a little bit about yourself? I already know quite a bit because we've actually worked together before on a couple projects, but for our listeners, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, hi, I'm Simone McEntire. I'm the producer of A Tree Fell Today, and I also act and am a voice artist as well.
And your previous, one of your previous shorts was actually a winner a couple years ago at the festival, Neo Le Coup.
That's right. Yeah, we just released that last week. Yeah, that was the first short of the director who came from the world of music videos and commercials. So this festival was probably his favorite because he got 2 awards, Best Cinematography and Best First Time Filmmaker, right? I think.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah,
and then,
they were so happy.
Yeah, it's great. And then he was able to, we typically invite a lot of our award winners to join our jury panel as well the following year. So I know he was on our jury last year as well.
That's
so
right,
it was great having
yeah.
him on board.
He was chuffed.
Sophia, do you want to tell me a bit about your background, how you got into filmmaking and some of the other stuff that you do? I'm very curious to hear about your critically acclaimed one-woman show as well.
Yeah, sure. I am or was primarily an actor, so I've been doing it for nearly 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then about 4 or 5 years ago, I came off the job and was kind of like, I'm a bit bored of all the same crime dramas and like the same crying people about, you know, the same thing that's resolved nicely. Not that that doesn't have its place. But I was trying to get funding for a TV series I'd written with a friend, which was hard. And so I was like, okay, what can I control and what can I afford to make myself? And so I made my first film, L'Immigrato, which is a kind of biopic about my granddad's side of the family, which is in South Italy. So I went out there with same DP for this, Jan, and we worked with kids and goats and stuff and decided that would be a good idea. And then I was hooked. So I've been making films, and since then, sort of, Blinkers is the first time I got to work with professional actors, and in the UK, so that was cool. And Void, my play, is, yeah, just I suppose like an angry young woman, but that's very different.
Nice. Great. And I know you won the Hollywood First Time Filmmakers Showcase in 2020 for your debut film as well. So congrats. That's cool.
Thank you.
Tell me a little bit more about that showcase. I'm curious to know.
It was with, unfortunately, L'Immigrato came out, well, we finished it the moment the pandemic hit. So we couldn't do any physical festivals with it. It did online a fair few, but it was quite tough being new to it completely and not really knowing how it worked, to then everyone else being new to this online festival thing. It was a really weird experience. But yeah, it was Liftoff Global. They're really cool. And they
it's Liftoff. Okay, great.
It is, yeah. And they were doing a festival for first time filmmakers. So I put it in there, which was cool.
Great. Cool. Hamza, let's talk a little bit about you and your background. I think this film was your student film, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And then it says you have 6 years of experience. You've been doing some music videos, some branded content, but your true passion is narrative filmmaking. And you won the EVCOM Focus Award in 2020 for your previous short film, Magpie. So just, expound upon that and tell me a bit more about your background.
So I've been making films, I guess, quote unquote, professionally for about 6 years now. I was always making little short films on my phone and stuff with my brother and my friends, but proper professionally since sixth form, like 6-7 years ago, probably. And since then, I've done about 2 or 3 short films and a few music videos as well. And a lot of editing, and also do a lot of music on the side as well. And I incorporate that into my films.
That's right. You did the score for JAHANNAM as well, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
And in fact, I actually got into music originally because I couldn't find a composer for a short film I did in the sixth form. And I didn't want to use any of the kind of like public library music. So I just did this like really bad synth score, which I ended up scrapping in the end, but I really fell in love with the process. It was very similar to editing a film in the sense of like you're figuring out the pacing of a song, and it's very similar to the pacing of a film in a lot of ways.
Yeah, no, the relationship between music and the film and the film itself is super important. And I think myself, as I'm editing, I'm always editing with music in mind, and music makes it come alive for sure.
No, 100%. And it's why you see such great music video directors like Spike Jonze or Tony Scott, Joel Schumacher, and all these guys. They have like such a good sensibility of pacing because they're so used to editing commercials and music videos to a certain pace and keeping the momentum going. So I'm trying to do the same thing, and hopefully I'm succeeding. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, your film, people are already responding to it. I know it's in our leaderboard for the audience award currently. So I would say you're definitely succeeding in connecting with people with your artwork. So that's great.
Thank you.
All right, so now let's talk just a little bit about your individual films that you have in competition this year. We'll start with The Tree Fell Today. Oliver and Simone, you can bounce back and forth as you see fit, but basically just want to know where the project originated from, what that first initial spark was, and yeah, why you decided to make this film now.
Okay, I'll say something and then Simone will say it's wrong, but I'll start from the beginning. So the original script came from a writer colleague of mine, which I thought was really interesting and actually was quite arty and experimental, which is something I hadn't done before, but had some really hard-hitting messages, which I could relate to, and I went through some stuff myself, so kind of took that and adapted it, really. And originally it was a man and a woman. And it was about a couple, and obviously one of them loses. Sorry, this will be full of spoilers if no one's ever seen the movie. But and then obviously they lose their child, and that's the basis of the story is the same. And we had quite a big cast member from a certain magical wizard film series who was going to play the female part. And anyway, I had a long conversation with her because she didn't understand why female character was feeling one way, yet the male character, and so we sat there. Had a really long conversation for about 4 or 5 hours, I think it was, which ended her saying, look, because of that, I don't think this part is right for me. So obviously you've got to sort of take these things on and try and, it's always evolving. So from that, I then basically changed the sex of the characters, and suddenly that seemed to open everything up and made it a much more interesting story. And at the same time allowed us to explore more areas with that, I think. And that was it, really. So that's how it all started. And then, then Simone got the script and...
Well, I actually got the first one, and then we had a lull, didn't we? And that's when you had the conversation.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine this being now, with a male and a female. But I do think, the film has these universal themes about loss. It's not just relatable to anyone who knows about losing a child, but for me, it was the unique way in which the story was so non-linear. And then in reading the script, I could see what you wanted to put across on the screen. And I just thought this was quite unique. And I really, was really quite excited by that because it was, you don't like to say experimental, but it was quite, I would say, unique.
Unique.
And that's I really liked that aspect, and I believe that and that's what I saw, which made me excited. There we go.
Cool. Well, we'll get a little bit more into some production stories next. But Sophia, how about you? What was the catalyst behind Blinkers and the genesis of that project?
Blinkers. So Blinkers is an old script I adapted. A long time ago, I was writing something and it wasn't working for screen. It just didn't work. So I started thinking about continuous dialogue and interwoven dialogue. So I adapted and started trying to adapt this piece into a play. And the idea was that the two women would talk continuously, but when they spoke separately, their lines make sense, and when they're together, they make sense. And then I realized to do a play of that, like, I'm not Albert Einstein, it was just insane, and it didn't work, so I shelved it for a really long time. And then Jan and I wanted to make a different film, but it was a pandemic line, and I couldn't get the rights for a certain piece of music I really needed. And then we were kind of chatting with friends and things about the pandemic, and we were talking about themes like mental health and isolation, and I remembered I had this piece, and I thought actually it could work really nicely as a short film and just be self-contained and let everyone else build the world they see for the girls separately out of it and just let them decide. So we decided to make something kind of fast and immersive and just run with it. So yeah.
Cool.
I think, yeah.
So how did you start bringing other collaborators into the project as well? At what phase? Did you have the fully developed script? Did you go through a lot of drafts based on feedback from collaborators?
So I did, the first draft was, or I already had the dialogue, so to speak, and that stayed pretty much the same until post. And then my editor and I went through a process. We stripped a lot of it back, and then we put it back in where it was necessarily. So the dialogue stayed the same, and then what I did was, as a script, it had dialogue on one side, and on the other side, it had kind of like a shot list of what I saw when I heard it. So I did that as a script, and then an actor pal of mine helped me, and we recorded a demo of how the dialogue would sound so people could just listen to it. And then we built, it's a really small team, so Theo, the editor, we've worked together before, and Ed, who did the sound, and Chris, who did the color. So I kind of sent it to them and blackmailed them into agreeing to do the project. And then the main thing for me, which is kind of what Hamza was talking about, was the score and the music. And I really wanted it to have a certain pace and feel, because it's just images in a way. It needed the music to make it work. Like, it just doesn't work without the track. And Ellie, or Biffin, she's a friend of a friend, and I think her stuff's awesome. And she does these big, like, club anthem-y feel techno soundtracks. So I sent her the script along with a lookbook and the audio, and she was really cool. She came on board. So then, and then I just put together a pack for the actors, which was like a playlist of how I felt it would sound, the audio, the lookbook, and the script. And I just sent that out.
Cool.
And then the two guys, one of them I know from seeing her in shows, and the other I'd seen in some shows. So I kind of, that's how I met them.
And approaching that way. Cool. Did was the music cut before? Was it produced before you made the film, or did she see the film and then make music to film?
No, so we shot it, and then I put together. So I broke it down in chapters, so to speak, of the dialogue. And what I did was, for each section, I gave her basically like a long document, and it had the dialogue for that section with stills that I'd taken from the rushes, so how I felt it would look, and then like a few words of how I wanted it to feel. So I gave her that, and she did like a rough cut, so to speak, of the music. We went back and forth maybe once, and then we edited to the music. Everything's edited to music apart from the first bit, that prologue, as I call it, which the editor, she put that together separately, and we actually ended up sampling one of Ellie's songs that just fit really well.
Interesting. Yeah, because it's a very unique score. I mean, obviously we love it. You know, it's nominated for Best Original Score at our festival, and it's a very unique score. Yeah, it has that club feel. It has that soundtrack feel rather than that score feel, which is super
I wanted
unique.
it to trick people. I don't know if it works. I hope it does. But I really, really wanted to lead people away from thinking like, oh, this is a sad film about a woman who's sad. So I wanted it to feel euphoric at moments, and imagining that this wasn't necessarily for her a bad thing. So.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think you definitely achieved that. So, Hamza, why don't you tell me a little bit about your film and the background and why you decided to choose this topic? Obviously, it's a very hot button, important, controversial issue. So, tell me about it.
Yeah, so I'd made Magpie, and which was part of uni as well, and I wanted to do something that was kind of like a spiritual sequel, I guess. Spoiler alert for Magpie, it ends with the protagonist going to prison. So I wanted to kind of do a film set in prison, but not with the same characters, kind of like just like a spiritual continuation, but in a different either time period, a different setting, or just a different community. And for the longest time, I was going to do this documentary about a prison choir, but it posed all these there were all these like permission issues that we couldn't sort out, and the prisoners themselves didn't want to really be a part of it. But I couldn't let go of the idea of wanting to do a film in prison. I mean, around this time, I was quite anti-prison as a punishment and not as rehabilitation. So quite like a dear subject to me at the time. And then someone I know called Layla, who actually has a additional story credit in the film because of this. She posted this article about administrative detention in Palestine, and I read it and I was like, this is. I'd already been, I'd already known about the kind of Israel-Palestine issue for years up until that point because of my mum. She was like very pro-Palestine in general, but I didn't really know too much about the issue until I read that article and then did more digging about the context and everything. And it just seemed like the perfect kind of template for me to incorporate narrative elements from that documentary, like the musical element, the idea of prisoners singing to themselves and all that as a form of kind of self-therapy and connection to their past.
That was your film opens with singing.
Yeah. And that was a big element of the documentary because the subjects in that, the proposed subjects for that documentary, they would use music as a form of therapy because the institution they were in was not rehabilitating them, it was just punishing them pretty much. And also I just love characters singing to themselves in films. I don't know why. It's just one of these I don't know if it's a trope or not, but it's just one of these conventions that I think really humanizes a character. You can really like make or break a character by the song choice that they use, you know. You can have a character who you absolutely hate and then they start singing to themselves like Bruce Springsteen, I'm on fire, and then it kind of flips your entire perspective of the character for some reason.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Music is very interesting in that way, and you can juxtapose it and have it be very opposite to what you would expect, or you can marry it perfectly. I
mean, the film, it originally started actually as, when I was coming up with the script and liaising with the producers and stuff, it was going to be like a sung through musical. It's kind of like an anti-musical where everyone was singing, but there was going to be no backing track. So
a cappella.
Yeah, in a kind of weird Swiss Army Man type of way. If you've ever seen that film.
Oh yeah.
So you know how like they sing just like at random points, and it's just like a kind of.
It's a very random movie in general, yeah.
Yeah. So so just throughout the entire process of this film, especially in the development phase, but even in the post-production, I was just pulling influence from all these different sources. And there's obviously all these like odes to Battle of Algiers as well, and Killer of Sheep, and The Education of Sonny Carson, all these old films that people don't really talk about, but they're kind of they're really important, especially at the time that they were released, and they're about certain issues of oppression, prison, all these things.
Interesting. Well, I now want to shift gears a little bit and talk about the productions themselves. So I think I'd love to hear more production stories, but I think probably the best question is, what is the biggest challenge that you faced, and how did you overcome that challenge? Tree fell today, crew?
What was the biggest? I mean, there's quite a list, so I don't know. The problem is I always end up going to the Spanish home, but that probably wasn't the biggest challenge. That was just an obstacle we had to overcome. The biggest challenge, our date couldn't move from the hire of the camera. So in order to get what we needed to do, we planned it so everything was in one location. So it was an old estate. Oh, well, you know, listen, I'm going to lose hours, right? If I've got to travel a crew, if I can get everything in one. And then to make it work, we had to fit it into 2 days. So obviously not moving helped us with all that. So we chose this old estate in Acton that was about to be destroyed. So, and originally as well, there was a rain rig. We were going to flood everything, but then we didn't because there was a guy squatting there. So we gave him all the furniture, and, you know, we lost that shot, but I think we saved a person's life. I know. So yeah, and just, you know, just that, I think with anything short format, you know, as you build up to it, suddenly someone else has to go and do this. Suddenly this happens, this flips around, you know, everything that can go wrong will go wrong, right? And I think as long as you've spent your time in prep well enough, and you know it will go wrong, you just learn to deflect it when it does happen. So I'm trying to think, was there anything major? I think some stuff turned up late. A lot of it that went wrong on the day I didn't know about.
No electricity.
That's good. That's good producing right there.
Producing.
That's
I mean,
good
I'm involved
producing.
quite a lot up until the shoot, and at that point, you have to go, look, I don't want to know. I don't want to. I'm over here. Just don't let me see the burning and the smoke, and it will be fine, and we'll carry on. And the whole shoot, I had no idea. But I'm sure Simone has a million other things.
I have a list, but quickly, we were the scene where she's in the bath. So obviously the water had to be hot, but there was no hot water or anything. And so I somehow managed to talk one of the people living in the place on like the 6th floor to give us water. Then he conveniently had this big long thing. So if you can imagine, we got water down in the lift. Numerous times. We had a genius art department at the last minute as well, because there were all sorts of crazy things happening with that. We had completely empty flat as well. So it amazes me how we managed to turn that around and get that decorated on the day. Like most of it happened.
Yeah, art
and
were amazing to be
that
fair.
was insane. And electricity, I spent a lot of time on the phone. I remember for day one.
The fire alarms.
Yeah.
We did that.
It was
this is
crazy.
fire alarms in a hallway. So obviously, if it's in a house, you just turn it off. But because it was an abandoned building, a lot of the doors are bolted shut. So the smoke had got through the crack of the door and set it off in a flat we can't get access to. I can't even remember how we fixed that.
Yeah. Electricity was a big deal. There wasn't any because we used 2 flats, you see, and whilst they were filming in the one on the ground floor, I was trying to figure out how I was going to get electricity in the one, but it was crazy. I just remember it being completely nuts, and Oliver didn't even know.
Like I said, that's good producing.
Ever, you know, when I say that, it's obviously not the happiest content, so it wasn't exactly like going around singing, but yeah, and the essays as well. If you look at the end of the movie when she leaves in the corridor, so the idea is we have thousands of people up it. So obviously, I turned to the ADs and I was like, I really need 20 people. But I know how this works. You ask for 50, you might get 15, right? So I was like, okay, we need 60 people all down here. Obviously, no one's getting paid, so like, you know, it's to get an extra for no money is quite tough. And obviously, we didn't get enough. So then we had the guys going around all the flats that were still occupied.
Yeah,
so
I was knocking on doors. Yeah.
Are either residents of the building or there are crew, including our wonderful producer, dressed up, standing in the hallway.
Cameo.
By then, I was a natural patient for mental health. So it was a fit.
Yeah, so there's a few of them.
Well, there you go. Sophia, do you have any interesting stories? What was your biggest challenge and how did you overcome it? I mean, obviously you were shooting all over London. So, I mean, that had to be a challenge within itself.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was, and it also, we were very, very unlucky. It was a pandemic, right? So we shot it over 3 nights. It was supposed to be 2. I broke it down to a few locations. So basically, the route that we follow is the route. So we started at the bus stop, and the plan was we would shoot Sophie, so Lil, in the silver dress, on the bus, on the top deck, of course, on the way in. And then we shot with the 2 all the way from Piccadilly Circus down to Embankment. And then we'd already shot some other stuff. So we basically had to get to the club, and then we were going to come back on the bus and do LJ in the sequence and do her stuff. And the great thing about it was relatively quiet because people were still loath to go out. However, that's far too much to shoot. You just can't do it. And we had no crew. It was me, Jan, the DP, and a friend who very kindly carried a lot of things. So we needed to do one matchup because we shot the stuff. I really wanted to be sensitive to the 2 girls, their big last moments. So by the time we got to the club, I separated. So we'd already shot the stuff on Millennium Bridge from Crowd with Sophie previously. And then I was matching up with LJ for the end for her stuff, and she has a kind of break. And we got that, and I may or may not have not had a permit. And the club was closed for renovations, and we lost the location completely. And then we got lockdown 3, So the club didn't reopen. And of course, we needed to match it with the Christmas decoration. So we had to kind of find a day when we could get down there and shoot with a match, but not a match, which then involved because then we had COVID officers. So then we did need a permit. So it was kind of all like insurance and a permit and a COVID insurance thing for 2 hours shooting. And then like the right angles so that you couldn't see too clearly that there were no balls and it says February in the background. So that logistically was a fresh hell and the most expensive day of shooting for us. But yeah, it worked. So I think we ended up doing 4 nights, but that one I'd given all the brushes to the editor because that was about 2.5 months later than the rest of the shoot.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow.
No, yeah, that sounds like a lot. And I mean, my assumption watching the film, because I mean, it's beautiful and it's absolutely gorgeous the way it was shot, but from a practical standpoint, I'm thinking like this had to be very guerrilla rather than permits. So I'm actually very surprised to hear that you went like the permitted route, the COVID safety routes with all those.
The only reason I'll be really honest,
wrangle?
the only reason that and so what was, it was all super guerrilla and it was all either, depending on who we were shooting, it was either Movi or a steady cam, a little bit of handheld. So that was kind of okay, and I don't mind carrying stuff. And the girls were really great about it. We didn't do permits, and that's why we're on the top deck of the bus and all that stuff. But for that particular location, it was a TFL red route. I spoke to the London film guys a fair amount. I did like a risk assessment for everything that could happen, and we had to prove we had a base. So I drove in and did the congestion, so I could park the car, so that could be the unit base, so that I could and sanitizers, and then I had to get permission from Red Route, but that was based off the permission from so it was logistically a nightmare, and it probably cost a few £100.
Wow.
But otherwise we wouldn't have finished the film. So it was like,
right,
what
you gotta do
you're
get
it done, right? Yeah. So yeah,
interesting.
And it's just me. Since I'm producing, I guess. So yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you're wearing many hats. Yeah, that's the way of short film for sure. Hamza, do you have any interesting stories? Biggest challenge of production, how you overcame it? I know you obviously had this concept from the beginning of wanting to shoot something in a prison. Did you have that location already in mind to try to write something around it, or was there a lot of difficulty in trying to find the prison location?
Well, in terms of the prison location, we actually built that. So most of the sets that you see in the final film, most of the sets that you see are set built.
Okay. Looks very authentic. I figured it was a found location rather than a set build.
The budget for the production team, production design team was very slim as well. So they did a lot with what they had. So a lot of credit goes to Anna Castanedo and a few other people in her department. So we were, in that sense, we didn't have to get permission. We didn't have many issues with permission.
Yeah.
In terms of big issues with the production, there wasn't too much that was kind of film breaking, but there were like a lot of like little things here and there, like from script writing, basically up until the end of the festival run. There was all like these kind of like little things that were happening. And I don't know if I can really say a lot of them, but, but there's I guess one of the funnier ones was there's a fight scene in the film between our protagonist, who we credit him as the prisoner, and this prison guard. And we had been trying. Our producer, one of the producers, Daisy, she had been trying to find a fight choreographer / stunt coordinator for a long time. So a lot of credit goes to her for that. But we couldn't get someone until the day of the shoot. So we all came in the morning and we choreographed this fight. And my original vision for it was like, it's just going to be like this 1 minute long take, static shot of this fight happening. So, and I'm not really a big fan of getting like too much coverage anyway. Like I kind of, if I have something storyboarded I like, just focusing all the artistic energy on that shot. Well, at least I did until this happened. There was the fight scene wasn't very good because it was all kind of like thrown together. I mean, it was literally done on the day. So in the editing phase, I had to find all these like kind of creative ways to kind of chop it up and make it seem like it was supposed to be these like fast bursts, which is what happens in the final film, and it's very effective. But I will never, like, the actual fight scene was so dog that I'm quite.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the bigger. Oh, and the two actors who were in it, they had little fight experience anyway. I think Ramsey, who our protagonist, he had some kind of like martial arts training, but I don't know if he had been in an actual fight scene like as visceral as that, with all these kind of environmental hazards as well. Like dirt was going in his eye at points, and it was pretty insane. It was just so early in the morning as well. We were just all like kind of out of it. But
well, it's amazing what you can fix in post and everything as well, and how you, and as you said, you stumbled upon something that was like a very effective way to portray that scene. So in some ways, it was almost a happy accident, right?
No, 100%. I think it works way better in the final version than it did in my original vision, I think. And a lot of credit goes to my co-editor, Tyrone, because we had just finished shooting right when the pandemic hit, so we didn't have any kind of pandemic related issues while we were filming, but we obviously had to edit remotely. And me and Tyrone, we would have these kind of calls about alternate ways to kind of reform and reshape the film. And sometimes we would do like our own separate cuts. So Tyrone would do like kind of his own cut of the film without any of my interference. So like bring kind of like a fresh take to a lot of these scenes whereas when I was writing the script, I almost edited the film in my head when I was writing the script, but he would kind of bring more fresh perspective, and I would appropriate some of his suggestions into the final cut. And I believe that chopping up of the fight scene was something me and him had discussed.
That's an interesting way to do it. Yeah, the two editors working separately.
Yeah.
So now let's just move on and chat a little bit about just how your festival journey has been so far. Experiences you've had watching the film with audiences in cinema or online experiences. How's A True Felt Today's festival run been going?
Simone?
I think it's been going pretty good.
Yeah.
We've got, I think, 4 awards, right, Oliver?
Great.
Yeah, I think
from the festival circuit.
I think so, yeah.
Or maybe, and we've got 2 in America from the Real Sisters, which is Oscar qualifying. For the cinematography and what was it? Cinematography.
Best unique film.
Was it experimental? Oh, experimental. Yeah. Do you know, I keep getting these experimental awards, although I don't like experimental. Anyway, that's another story. And and then what's the other? I can't remember. You've got a best director one from Italy.
Best director, best LGBT.
Yes, in LA.
Which is in LA.
So it's been amazing, but we've been craving this live experience. Oh, we had a screening at the end of the year with British Urban Film Festival, live one. So that was the first one. So the People's Film Festival is the second. And I just think there's something special about the live audience, because you can, I watch what people are looking, their faces and all sorts. You've got that interaction. You can have the chat going on. It's just not quite the same online, but I've been grateful that we've been able to participate because we started, when did we start it? In spring submitting last year?
Yeah, it's coming up to the end of its
first. But I've been, before that I had another film on the circuit that I started during the beginning of the pandemic, and actually, it's been worthwhile. I'm glad I didn't wait, but I'm glad that we are, live and direct.
Yeah, there's definitely benefits to both. It's good this year to be hosting a hybrid festival, so we kind of we've been getting the best of both worlds, so we can get some international Q&As, and we can.
It's more accessible as well.
Yeah, definitely more accessible, but you don't want to miss out being in the room. Being in the room is so
it
useful.
Feels like a good combination of it, like having both elements. Because you make, for myself anyway, I make these to be shown on a big screen. Right, that's so you make it to be cinematic and to fit this criteria, and you do the sound on a cinema screen, right? I mean, sound mixing it in a proper cinema screen, and then you see Joe Blogs watching on their phone. Sure, look, at least it's getting viewed and it's getting out there, but that isn't necessarily how the creator designed it. If that makes sense.
When also, depending on the level that you're at as a filmmaker, too, it's so interesting to feel the vibe of the room. And I think it's such a great growth experience for filmmakers to have, because there's so much of the time, if you're just watching your film and it's just tunnel vision, you tend to watch your film through different eyes when you watch it with other people, and you're like, oh, that pacing moment didn't work, or oh, that pacing moment did work that I was maybe insecure about and was thinking about changing. It's really good to see that actually landed. So it's vital.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, even some of the other live events we've had with the film, being international and being the current situation in the world, it's getting better. But even if we wanted to go to them, we then can't. So there's flip sides of it. If it's just a live event, right, and there isn't any digital side, and you are in another country because you just physically can't get there.
Yeah.
Indeed. Sophia, how has the festival circuit been for Blinkers?
I think we're just starting. So I actually saw it for the first time ever with you guys at the monthly.
At our open mic night.
The words have gone. Yeah. It's very strange. I'd like to say I enjoy it being. I enjoy seeing it, but I don't think I enjoy seeing it with other people, because I think I got to the stage where I kind of am like, oh, like I'd recut maybe that, or like, oh, they're gonna see that. I guess maybe the honesty is like I'm kind of probably riddled with anxiety when I'm surrounded by other people with it, and I sort of want to die. But it, like we took it to Crystal Palace, which was awesome, and we saw it on a huge screen, and it was seeing London like that with the girls in it and as the film. That was amazing, and I was really glad that London, in my opinion, kind of came across as a third character in it, which was great, which was something I really wanted. And I suppose what's just really telling with it, and when we see it live, is how important the score is with it, because it just doesn't work without the sound. And so although it's designed for the big screen, like you were saying, Oliver, I kind of feel with Blinkers,
Oh, I think we maybe lost you there a bit. I think she was going to say that sound is important. It's headphones.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was just saying, and when I see it on a small screen, or someone close with it, and here, I know that they're very immersed, because I know that it's pounding. So I know that the pace carries. Whereas my only worry when we screen it, and being genuinely honest, if the sound's not loud enough, I feel like it loses its heart, and that's when I worry. So I think that's where I sometimes am a bit like, hold your hat.
Yeah.
But who knows? I can't see it through other people's eyes, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. I definitely relate to like both sides of that. Sometimes it's so exciting to see it, and even sometimes the same film, I will constantly go back and forth screening my film, being like, oh yeah, this is really good, everyone's really connecting with it, and then the next time being like, oh my god, this is terrible. Like you really do. Artists are never a good judge of their own work. It tends to seem, and in both directions, can think it's too good or too bad. So it's very interesting to see your audience's takes on that. Hamza, how's your festival journey been thus far? What other festivals have you played at? And what are your plans with it?
Yeah, in the end, we ended up in about, I think, like 6-7 festivals. But at the beginning, it was quite a struggle, especially given, it's not surprising given the topic of the film, but I'd kind of anticipated, since there was all this kind of pro-Palestine rhetoric going on, especially in the summer. I thought maybe it would elevate the festival
Profile
run.
of the film. Yeah.
I think in actuality, it probably did the opposite.
Oh, really?
Made probably a lot of festivals more trepidatious of the film, given how kind of the discourse around the topic was quite so sharply divided. That it was probably like a risky film to have on most people's schedule. But what was I going to say? It's been a good experience. I've only been to about 2 of the screenings, and in both situations, similar to Sophia, it's kind of a moment of I can't really watch it with a lot of people. There's only one scene in the whole film where I can kind of just watch it directly and not feel like I'm like cringing in my seat, and it's actually the torture scene. I don't know what that's about me, but
that's what you like watching.
Well, no, I think it's in the entire film. It's the only scene that I think is I wouldn't change anything. I feel like in terms of the music and the editing and just the pacing of the overall scene, I think everything is as perfect as I could have made it. But every other scene, especially the conversation between the prisoner and the warden at the beginning, I really can't watch that scene just because I know there's like all these elements that I wish I had added into the dialogue, into the editing. So while it's nice to see everyone's reactions to the film, it's not always the best. I don't really feel too comfortable watching it with other people.
No, and it is interesting because I mean, there's always that pull to make your work better, and you know that never really goes away. That's why you see things like George Lucas redoing Star Wars. It's like everybody already loves it, man. You don't need to change anything.
It is I think it is a pretty bad habit that I'm prone to, because it's hard to understand that once the audience sees your film, they're not seeing any of the pre-production or what could have been. They're just seeing what is. So they're not thinking, I wish in this scene it included the song that was made back in January. They don't know about the song back in January. So there's no point really even thinking about that, because the audience isn't going to think about that. But when you're with a project for so long, it's hard to not, I guess, think about it.
Indeed.
So I think this is actually the last festival that the film's played at as well. So it was a nice kind of cap to the
closer. Gotcha.
Yeah, it's a nice cap to the entire festival, I think, especially given it was a physical screening. Some of the other ones were in other countries and they were all digital. I got like a few messages at some point from like people in Sweden or something, or Denmark, and they're like, "Oh, we loved your film," and I'm like, "What? I don't even know if the film was in Denmark."
How did it get there?
I think I must have like submitted it to one of these festivals on a whim, like not even thinking about it, and then I just got like these messages like, "Oh yeah, we should work together." I'm like, "Bro, what?
Where in Denmark?"
I think it was the Our House Arab Film Festival. Not Our House, Aarhus. I think it's a place in Denmark.
Okay, cool. So what's next for you guys? What are you working on? What's your upcoming project? I mean, obviously, Oliver, you are part of our big pitch because your film was nominated for our £1,000 film fund. So I know there's your exciting upcoming projects available on our website where you can get a sneak peek at it. But let's hear it straight from you.
So as you said, kind of the major thing which we put in for the pitch is the Bad Space Collective, which is a series of science fiction comic books. They're about between 10 and 15 panels, so each one relatively maximum 10 minutes, obviously, usually much less. And the plan is to shoot a load of them, put them together and kind of release it as a feature-length product. Obviously much more sellable and has much more reach to get out there, and you can get more stories going and everything else, but the principle of making it is still doable on a lower budget, and also you can fish out various projects, different directors and producers to then create the whole thing. So to do that, we're creating the first one, which is called The Suit, which if you click on the link below this, I believe it's below this, right? When they watch this, is it?
Yeah, it's definitely around, yeah.
Around somewhere is a thing where you click on our film, and then you vote for it to win the pitch already. But yeah, so if you look at that, at least that can give you some of the visuals from the comic book, and some of the soundscapes and things we want to do on that. So that's probably the major thing. And the other thing, from my point of view, there's a book at the moment that I can't talk too much about, but the psychological horror that we're working on, to turn that into a screenplay, and yeah, again, another feature really.
Great, making the leap to features.
That's 60 minutes or more. That's all you got to do. It's not that difficult, right? The amount of work you put in and the outcome, it's pretty similar.
Yeah, no, that's very true. I think people look at features as a very daunting thing, and then anybody who's been in the short space long enough realizes, well, I just need to push a little bit harder to try to get this feature, and then I walk away with something that might be a bit more valuable of a product. Certainly, shorts are very valuable to grow your craft, and you can use them as your calling cards and to network. But yeah, good for you for getting started on the feature. Just do it. That's what I say.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? And then all I need is X amount of money. So if anyone knows anyone with any large bags of money, that would be really
Oh yeah, everybody, right?
Yeah, right. I'm sure that's literally everyone that's going to be at any event, any film festival. Is like, has anyone got any money? And I know Simone's also doing a few other bits as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we've got the suit with Oliver, and then I have a couple of possibly 2 features coming up. One is a comedy, and the other one is a adventurous action. So very different, but yeah.
And you're in
but of course the suit.
With these?
I think I will be at the end of the year.
Okay, development.
Yeah.
Cool. Sophia, what's next for you?
I'm going back to the film I wanted to make before Blinkers, which is called Que Sera, and so I need the rights to the song Que Sera. So if as well as bags of money, if someone can find like a physical human being I can talk to that can talk me through that and help me, that would be great. So I've pretty much got everything lined up. I've sort of tenderly started casting. It's another two-hander, another thing with 2 women. This is more about music and the unsaid, so kind of a sisterhood story, and how we can touch each other with really small things. Yeah, crew, etc., all sort of ready to go. Lookbook and things like that ready to go. I just need the rights, and then hopefully I'd like to shoot in September. So we'll see.
Fantastic. How much have you looked into the rights? And I mean, do you know who owns it and what they're asking?
I've been trying to do it for 18 months. Wow. Yeah, 18-ish months. Do I know who owns it? Yes. Can I get hold of them? No. And have I been going around in circles? Yes. And I'm all for picking up the phone or knocking on doors, but to get to those bits is really hard.
Yeah.
But I think I became despondent, so I need to just go again. I'll get it done. It's fine. But yeah.
And then I know it's so difficult because there's the owners of the written material, the songs, and then if there's a recorded version, that's a different set of rights. So it's always a process to go through, depending on what you're trying to do with it.
Yeah, and I've never worked with existing music, so everything I've done, we've composed something new. So that's new for me.
Yeah. Well, good luck with that. Hamza, what's next on your agenda?
There's a few projects just mostly in development. Nothing too concrete. I have this short film idea set in Christmas about a Uber driver who has no family, and this is a dark comedy. So he has no family, but he's driving a lot of families around, obviously because it's Christmas and everyone's visiting each other. And he's a pretty happy-go-lucky guy until he gets this one passenger, and I'm not going to say anything else other than that. And then I don't know. I have like a dream idea to do like a reboot of Spice World, but I don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon. Like,
Oh.
I don't think you can touch a perfect movie, right? I mean,
yeah. No,
I
I
wasn't
have
expecting that.
I have this whacked out kind of reboot idea of Spice World that maybe I'll entertain you guys with it one time, but it's so
Wow.
it's quite crazy. But
Nice. We need to chat over drinks for that one for sure.
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Cost and everything for it.
Cool. Well, thank you so
Wow.
much for joining us, guys. We're going to do one final quick fire round. So just quick answers. Your best piece of advice for filmmakers.
go work in the film industry.
I'll just get it done.
Skill sets and stuff and training at the moment, and there's so much content being made, and there's not enough people to make it. And at the moment, they are crying out for people in every department. So I would try and do that.
Don't take no for an answer.
Oh, you can do more than you think you can do. So just do it.
If you're a film student, don't be dependent on your university to help you after you graduate. Just go out and kind of network as much as possible. And while you're in uni, don't try and like build that network with other people, because you'll need them after you finish.
Mm-hmm. Great.
The degree is pointless, basically.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, guys. I really appreciate all your insights, and look forward to seeing you guys this weekend at the festival to screen the films that we haven't screened yet. And obviously I know some we've screened already, but yeah, thank you so much for your time, and we'll catch you guys soon.
Cool.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you.
Bye.